Hey, big guy. I haven't seen you in a bit. Nice to, you got me up nice and early here in Calgary. Where are you?
Dave. I'm in Thailand. Aren't you in the hotel room next door? We have this festival
Yeah,
in the
they got
morning.
all these nice decorations behind me.
Uh, yeah. I haven't seen you for what, a week?
Yeah, I think it's been a week since I've been home and you're relaxing, getting a little beach time or what?
Beach time. I played some golf yesterday.
Played some golf. Wow. We're meeting here. We're here to talk about reflecting on 2024. We sent a newsletter this week about coffee industry, what's going on, the evolutions and challenges of the last year. So we thought we'd kind of chat through our top five picks, and I just want to hear your thoughts, big guy.
Dave, first time caller, long time listener. Glad to be here on the show and explore, the top five dead or alive of 2024.
Top five rappers, okay, let's do it.
All right.
So so uh
So
so
I hear every time I lead in with this so now, I cringe.
it's painful, eh?
It's so painful. Yeah.
It is so painful.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's do this.
Let's our first pick, number one pick was coffee prices record highs, C
Yeah.
market spinning at an all-time high. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Maybe we can take a bit of an angle on how that affects producers, how it affects roasters, and how it affects end consumers.
Yeah,
Talk
for
to me.
sure. Do we have the number? Do you have the number handy of what the C market has gotten to? I do think it's one of the biggest conversations in the industry this year as you look that up. The C market is a very important element of our industry. It ensures fair market, whatever that is. The market dictates the price. So it ensures the fair market is paid around the globe and sort of sets a minimum trading price for the value of coffee around the globe. So the market being in an all-time high is fascinating. It's slightly scary. It means a little bit of volatility going into 2025 because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen on all parts of the coffee chain. We've got producers that are kind of in this interesting state of mind depending on their operation. Some producers are loving the market being as high as it is. Some maybe less producers, more traders, which is a lot of players in the industry, are potentially worried depending on what their contracts look like. There's a lot of traders that have long positions on low price contracts, and for them to fulfill, they have to eat the difference. So if there's a differential of $1 a pound, $2 a pound between the contracts they have to fulfill today and what the market price is and what they're locked into, a lot of people are in trouble financially in order to play with that. It's all risk trading, options contracts type of stuff, and so the C market is fascinating.
Stuff you're
On
big into, right?
huge into it, man. I've ridden the cycles, ebbs and flows. No, um, it's fascinating. It's way beyond coffee. It's really deep economic trading and handling, and a lot of our industry happens over a trading desk more so than it happens in the field or in the cafe or in the roastery. A lot of the economics are delivered on a trading desk, so it's fascinating to zoom in on that side and see how traders are dealing.
I think if you break it down, you got two types of producers. Some are selling through the C market,
Yeah,
and they're, like you're saying, they're probably quite excited about the C market rising because they can go down to an area and sell their cherry or sell parchment very quickly and receive a
yeah,
much higher price than they were, say, a year and a half ago. So it's today it's $3.25 US, and a year and a half ago it was like $1.70. So that's a big win on their side. And then you have a second kind of area of producers that they're dealing more of like a direct trade or a different sort of model that kind of reflects the C market, but not always.
Right.
And their prices have probably gone up a bit as well because they know the C market, the kind of base case is, you're sitting around $3.25. So, but it's tough on some producers. It's not always positive because what can happen is producers start like quickly produce coffee and sell it, and that can cause a drop in quality, or there's contracts in place that can be very confusing and overwhelming that they have to produce coffees at certain prices that are below now C market pricing, and they're actually technically taking a loss. So there's some confusion. Okay, so we got producers. It's kind of a mixed bag there. How about for roasters?
Yeah, for roasters, I mean, it's a tricky situation as well because it's kind of the high tide raises all ships. So, as an example, you're wearing a Rosso T-shirt. I'm familiar with the brand Rosso. Rosso's doing everything as close to direct as possible, dealing with people, on the ground in the countries that it's sourcing from. It's paying premiums for its coffees, and I think when Rosso got into buying coffee, 2015, 2012, we were buying from importers. 2015, we started buying everything ourselves. I think the C market was about $1, right? 90 cents, $1, something like that. And at that point, we were paying $3.50, $4 a pound for kind of our inputs that would go into our core menu and some single origins and upward from there. And now those coffees have been, those would have been 85, 86, 87 point coffees then. And now in 85, 86, 87 point coffee equivalent today has risen because the C market has essentially gone above that pricing. So maybe now it hasn't 4x like the C market has, but maybe it's 2x or 3x, and the $3 coffee then is maybe now $8 a pound, 15 to 20 a kilo, something like that. And it has also jumped up laterals. So it's a great thing for producers that own their production. It's a scary thing for roasters if they can't pass that cost on to consumers. What we're going to see, my thoughts, my prediction into 2025, which I don't think is such a crazy hot take in any way, shape, or form, but roasters are going to cut the quality that they are putting into the coffees they're serving and selling you. They're going to maintain the price as best as possible until they just cannot anymore. And what's going to happen is you're going to get a two-way movement. One is going to be, let's say you used to buy a bag of coffee that was 85 points on a quality basis for conversation purpose, and it was $20 for the bag, again for conversation purpose. I believe by the end of the year the equivalent bag will probably be 83 points quality and will now be $24, and will also potentially be less quantity on top of that. You're going to
Yeah,
get
shrinkflation.
at least two of those, potentially all three, depending on the situation of the roaster.
Yeah, I would agree. We're going to probably see we've seen it already. So people have created smaller bag sizes. So, in North America, a long time ago it was 1 pound, and now most roasters are 340, and we've seen quite a few go to 300 grams or
Yeah,
250, and the price either stays the same or comes down ever so slightly.
yeah, barely.
But the cost per gram of coffee has gone up, and like you're saying, there's a problem when the C market for a roaster. The problem is when the C market rises, finding coffees at the same price point becomes much more difficult. And especially when big international companies are sucking up any supply that's at a cheaper price point, it becomes harder and harder. So roasters are kind of getting squeezed. So quality will drop, prices will either stay the same and the size will go down. would be
Yeah.
more my guess. I don't think they'll, rarely would we see, I think, all three happen in the same year, but maybe over a course, definitely over the course of the next couple of years, all three will be going on. So
Well, it's another thing that's happening in the global marketplace, global landscape, is the U.S. dollar is strengthening and a lot of other currencies are deflating. Right, the Canadian dollar is in the worst shape it's been in for potentially our entire lives. It's low. It's like very low, and the same case is happening with the euro, with the Australian dollar, with many dollars around the world. So global marketplace, people are also combating the U.S. dollar and the price differentials they're getting hit with on that in the roastery. So, it's going to be an interesting year. I think we're going to see. We're sadly going to see some closures. Some people decide that maybe the hobby roasting business isn't as much fun anymore that now that everything's tightened, or potentially it's gonna lead to a big surge in like true specialty focused roasteries where people are only roasting the top end. This price stuff doesn't matter. None of that matters. It's like just roast what I want to roast and what I want to serve, and make my humble business from that. Maybe not super scalable. Maybe it is super scalable. Um, but maybe we'll see some more models like that kind of emerge and less people focused on volume.
we touched a bit on pricing. What's from the consumer's side of things? We talked about quality maybe going down, prices staying the same or going up. Um, yeah, how does the reflecting back on the year, because we keep going into the future here. We got to reflect back. Come on.
Mm-hmm. What's your question? What's the whole question?
I don't know. We got to talk about the consumer here, man. I don't have a question. It's more of a it's more of a statement. Oh, they're great. Yeah.
They're great. Another thing that could happen. I had this conversation with there was a person at Thai Coffee Festival, a slightly older demographic, and they commented that they've started consuming less coffee because they've seen the price of coffee going up. So they're treating it more like a treat to themselves rather than I'm going to have it every day as part of my routine,
Hmm.
which I think is also kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It's I don't think there's been a huge impact this year on the consumer regarding prices. I think we're going to feel all of that next year because prices really just got there maybe through our summer, August, September, October, and just in the last couple of months. We're sort of in the midst of the bull run, I guess. Robusta ran earlier this year, chocolate ran earlier this year, and now Arabica has done its run. Maybe it all kind of comes back and flattens out a little bit going into next year. It all ebbs and flows, right? It's going to come back down. It's not going to run forever. Don't buy the top, people. You're going to get stuck holding the bag. I know.
Well, these are great stock picks. Great stock picks.
Oh yeah.
Okay, should we move on to maybe one of your favorite topics?
Yeah, which one is that? I know what it's going to be. The
The
EUDR.
EUDR.
I love when you finish my sentences. All right, the European Union deforestation regulation.
There's a couple of Europeans here. We got to talk about this.
Yeah, doesn't really truly affect you and I all that much, but at the same time also does really affect you and I. So the EUDR, European Union Deforestation Regulation, is, if you aren't familiar, it's a mandate that's gone in that was supposed to pass this year that any commodity, I think there's 8 or 9 commodities. I didn't do a refresher on this before jumping on here. I think there's 8 or 9 different commodities that have fallen under the guise of the EUDR, coffee being one of them. If you are one of those commodities shipping into Europe, you need to meet very specific protocols, very specific procedures, and then producers of these commodities need to have like a long list of different certifications and checkpoints in place in order to viably, legally ship to Europe. And the idea is to mitigate deforestation, which is happening very much in conjunction with coffee, especially in Southeast Asia and parts of Africa, but also all through Central and South America. So the idea is to protect the global landscape from deforestation via agriculture specifically. So, I mean, a huge landslide type of document to pass, and a lot of people were really worried about it, and that was kind of the trigger at the beginning of the bull market for the C prices to rise up because
People are trying
European,
to get ahead of the game. They're trying
yes,
to buy as much coffee as possible without the certification in place because it is less things to do. Doesn't It's going to close the scope also on what coffees you can buy because if you're a
yeah,
producer and you can't come up with these documentations,
you
technically you
lose
can't sell.
Europe.
Yeah,
Yeah, and Europe is one of the biggest consuming markets for coffee in the world, so you don't want to lose Europe. So certain producers just will not be able to sell to Europe in the future. This has been postponed by 1 year, which I think is great. A lot of people weren't ready for it. We weren't ready for it. We didn't even have to do anything to get ready for it, and we weren't ready for it.
thank
Uh,
goodness.
yeah, but we did some research into what you have to do. Roasteries need to do documentation. Importers need to do documentation. Producers need to do documentation. Exporters, there's lots of different checks, and honestly, a lot of it is just kind of greenwashing type of stuff. It's not really going to make these ginormous changes. It's just everything is gonna kind of continue on in a stalemate type of pattern, in my opinion. But they're making action in government to try to make change. What are your thoughts on it? How did that affect us this year?
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on it. It helped run the C market. Yeah, it pushed prices of the C market up quite significantly because so many roasters were trying to, buy coffee before this went in place. Now that it's been delayed, there was quite a bit of backlash over the proposal. And then as companies kind of went through this, the regulators realized like a year's not enough time to get everything in place. So
Right.
like anything, the regulators are trying to improve things, but there's unforeseen problems with this whole thing that yeah, a lot of small scale producers are gonna like struggle to sell their coffee and instead of somewhat helping or yeah, giving them an outlet to move coffee into Europe now it's going to be even more difficult and we're hurting those type of producers more because they can't come up with the paperwork. They can't prove, through photographs and plots of land and different things that they're able to meet this criteria. So that's tough. So
Right. It's going to benefit the big corps that can do all the documentation, keep up with all the certification and the governance, and the small mom and pop. They own half a hectare. They produce in their backyard. They sell to a cooperative, whatever that might be. They're going to be the ones sort of stuck high and dry, unable to.
or they're selling to the cooperative and they're getting charged more because the
Yeah.
cooperative has to do the paperwork on their behalf. And
Right.
so it starts to crush their margin and they start to go, well, selling coffee or cocoa used to be maybe a bit profitable, but now it's too much with all these pressures. So
Right.
yeah,
They'll switch.
it'll be interesting.
They'll move into durian production. Very profitable.
Oh yeah, get that durian going. Um, I don't even know
Oh,
what to say after that.
did I kill your train of thought?
I love onions. I love onions.
Uh,
If you
yeah,
haven't had durian, look it
um,
up, people.
yeah. Look up durian. It's an experience for sure. The EUDR, I think it'll be a big headline next year. I think if we fast forward to this time next year, it'll be a bigger headline than coffee prices, in my opinion. I think market will come down next year. We'll see some movement downward, maybe flatten out a little bit, stabilize where it is. The EUDR, there will be lots of chatter, especially sort of June through September, as people completely forget to do all of the stuff that they started doing before they delayed it. And then toward the end of next year, everybody's going to go, oh shit, man, I forgot about this and I got to do this again. And Dave, did you do that? No. And I think that's how it'll go. But
Okay, topic three.
okay, what do we got for topic number three?
The staying power of alternative milks in cafes in 2024. I know you're a big soy milk guy. You like blending it with just a touch of oat. What's going on with alternative milks in 2024?
So I have a question before we get into this.
No
How are
questions, man.
how are
Just
alternative milk
statements.
how are alternative milk industry going to be affected by the EUDR? I haven't considered that. But is that going to put any sort of hindrance on any of those milk products, milk byproducts? They're not milk. Are any of those industries included within the umbrella that we're going to see
Like almond or something like that.
one of the alternative milks just get absolutely crushed in terms of industry? Oh, hello.
There's a dog. Hi, puppy.
Hi.
We're dog sitting and
Oh, cool.
okay, we're doing a podcast here. Hang on.
Hey, dog, do you mind?
Sorry. Hi, pups.
It's fine.
Maybe
We don't need to dive into that, but I just had the consideration those are agricultural products. I wonder if any of them are affected in the EUDR and if any of them are going to get completely crushed because Europe is their market, but their manufacturing is done slightly outside of that. And I don't know. Anyway, alternatives in cafes. Let's chat about that. Which one's your favorite?
not I'm not a big alt milk guy. But I think interesting enough, they trended up and like anything in our industry, we're feeling, thinking, oh, they're going to fall off. They're not. It's a here and now thing. And I think some cafes, it's like 40-50% of what they're selling is alternative milks. And that's kind of changed the landscape of what's going on in the average cafe.
Yeah.
And being the costs associated with it, alternative milks are more costly. Um, and we see automation going into a lot of cafes, like, steamed milk and things like that. And are alternatives easy to do? Um, People with like health needs, it's a good option for some of them, as they can't drink milk, they're lactose intolerant. We have something else for them.
Yeah, like those are nice things to have alternative milks on. I think they're here to stay. I remember when I got into the industry and at the time we had 3%, 1% in terms of milk. I guess we had 10%, half and half. We had lactose free milk,
Yeah, that's right.
which I thought was often best for milk beverage. And then I believe we did not have anything else. Soy came in maybe a year or two, maybe a year after I was in the industry. I think we started to introduce soy and then almond not far behind and then coconut not far behind that. And I don't know. It's like it's nice to have them in the industry. I think it's gone a little crazy. You go into some cafes, you go into our cafe and we have four options. Like the optionality I think is a little overboard, that it often distracts from the coffee.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard as a cafe owner. Like, what options do you stock? Like, you're already at seven or eight. and that becomes difficult and hard on the operator. And then someone comes in and they want pea milk or whatever. Maybe not pea milk. What are they called?
There's pea milk, yeah. I get what you're saying that we need the optionality for the customer, but I think on the flip side too, we're never going to please everybody, and we shouldn't try to.
Yeah, definitely.
As terrible and rough as that sounds, it's like 100 people walk into the cafe. The odds of us being able to please all 100 of them and the realistic expectation to sustain that, pleasing line is a little too much. I think if we don't have hemp cashew walnut milk blend for that one client, like I think we're gonna be fine. One thing I do like that's come from the alternative milk segment is I've seen a lot of cafes that are mixing milks now, so they're kind of creating their own like in-house alternative milk taste and texture that goes with their coffee. So rather than it's a straight up coconut out of the Tetra Pak, it's 30% coconut and whatever mix, and they're kind of
Like a
making
signature
their
milk for
house,
the
their
cafe.
house signature. Yeah, which I think is a nice way to do it. But then you're also kind of moving away from allergy, which is where it sort of began, was with the allergy thing, right? People didn't want to drink dairy because they weren't able to. They moved to soy. A lot of people don't want to consume soy because of some of the research that's gone into it. So they moved to almond. A lot of people are not able to consume almond, so they moved to coconut. And then it's just none of us are really
Just have a
allergic
black coffee.
anyway.
Just
Just
have a
have a black.
filter coffee, baby.
Yeah, that's the way to go. But what is your favorite alternative milk?
Ooh, good question.
I've been thinking that question all year, and I've finally mustered the courage to ask you.
Well, Kuma's making an appearance. Say
Yeah,
hi,
I
Kuma.
do that.
Kuma.
Do that.
Kuma's excited about the alternative milks in 2024. So for
Kuma, we
me,
all have to be.
okay, Grog. Yeah, for me, looking back on alternative milks, like I think, damn dog, can you hear it's breathing?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh,
People
okay.
love dogs, man. This is going to be our most viewed segment is the
Yeah,
dog
yeah,
appearance. They don't care about alternative milks. The dog being here,
yeah. Uh, no, I think that we've had some nice blends over the last year that people are creating. Um, we're not tasting those really in cafes or through competition, but those type of blends of 60/40 of two different types of milks combined with this coffee can taste really like outstanding. I think it's harder. I think it's harder in the average cafe to do that on like mass scale, doing four, five, 600 drinks. But it will definitely, they're here to stay. They're not going anywhere, and they're probably going to continue to eat up the percentage of milk. Um, and where that ends, we'll probably there's some cafes like in the States, their default milk now is oat milk.
right?
And that's like those are international chains that are doing that. So
Right.
these alt milks have figured out branding ways, or the alternative milks have figured out ways to like brand their process as like also a healthier alternative to milk, which is kind of interesting because if you read the list of ingredients on the side, you probably can't pronounce half of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've gone the other way. I used to always have alternative milks at home, and part of the reason was the convenience of shelf life. Right?
Mhm.
They're able to sit in my cupboard rather than in the fridge. And so I like the idea of having alternative milks because I didn't have to run the timeline of milk expiring. And I've actually done a shift this year back where I'm back to drinking dairy. I much prefer dairy, and I've cut, for the most part, cut alternative milks out because I can't pronounce half the stuff that's in a lot of the different barista series, this or different alternative milk products that are on the shelf today. So I don't know. They're not for everybody. They are here to stay for sure. But I'm gonna put out the hot take to go back to dairy forever.
Dairy's back.
That could be one of my 2025 predictions. We'll see. It's not. Okay, what's our next one? You got anything else on milks?
No, let's keep going. The rise of new processing methods. We've seen thermal shock. We've seen co-ferments. We're seeing all sorts of things going on in the industry. And I think 2024 was the year, last couple of years they've been really highlighted. And I think this is the year it had, there's controversy at the Best of Panama. We had Hunter on the podcast talking about that. These processing methods or infusions are allowed into coffee competitions. They've done very, very well at, all sorts of events. It's kind of divided the industry. I don't know if it's 50-50, but it's divided the industry of people loving them and then other people wanting more traditional types of coffee.
Right.
So where did this land for you in 2024?
Yeah, great question. I don't think they're not new this year, right? This has
No.
been maybe 4 or 5 years that it's been kind of building, but I think this year was the year that everybody kind of decided to comment on it. And
Yep.
there was a statement that you referenced from the BOP. If anybody hasn't listened to the episode with Hunter, it's a great episode. You should check that out. You could also check out the episode with Juan Pablo Campos. It talks about thermal shock. It talks about the breakdown of some of these processes. It also talks about his side of the statement and what it's kind of about. Early this year, you and I go to a lot of trade shows, a lot of coffee events, and early this year, I don't know who started this, but there are all these stickers that say "not infused." It's just the word "infused" and then this sort of no sign on top of it. And I think that played a big part in it also, where you would just see on the back of somebody's phone, on their shirt, on their booth, at different places around at a trade show, these no infused. And so now we got the just general conversation going, and people making their claim and taking their stance on it. And yeah, I think it's really fascinating. I think it's another one of those things like the alternative milk segment. If it's not for you, it's not for you, but it's still here to stay. Like it's in the industry now. We're going to see more and more of this happening. What are your thoughts? I got some others to think about, but I feel like I'm dominating this episode because you're over there playing with that dog, man. Could you be a little bit more professional for once?
Come on, Kuma, get in the shot. Oh, now you're shy, eh?
Now you're shy. Now that I call.
Yeah, this type of processing, co-ferments, thermal shocks, all that come up in the last 4 or 5 years. Statements made this year that it kind of hit the industry, and I think like anything, people are very excited about it, and they're looking for innovation, and then there's like traditionalists that want to keep classic wash coffees. And there was a point in time when naturals or anaerobics were kind of the same thing. We went through the same thing, 20, 25 years ago, where it was like, oh, natural process coffees are like, defective, or like that's not true coffee. Or anaerobics aren't, it's impacting too much flavor and changing the flavors too much in the coffee. So I think we'll see, without going into the future, like it's become a big point. People are drawing the lines, and people either love or hate them. And I think that's good. It's good to have conversations around it, and you're okay to pick a side, long as it's like long as the conversation is building up the industry, we just don't need to rip each other down. I think and some of it kind of comes across of like really negative, and people are using it to like destroy coffee, or they feel like they're cheating coffee or something like that. And I don't think it needs to be, just because you don't like it doesn't mean everyone else doesn't have to
Yeah.
enjoy it. It's a segment that people, like lots of people, really love, and that's the first time they're able to like taste, flavors in coffee. Like they're able to perceive like, oh wow, it's really, I can taste peach in this coffee for the first time instead of coffee tastes like coffee. And that can be a good thing.
Yeah,
Um,
they can open their eyes to the journey ahead of them, and even though peach was in that coffee that they tasted peach, like physically in and fermented with to create that flavor, it's still a benefit that somebody goes, oh wow, it would be like drinking a flavored wine or flavored, beverage and food, anything. It would be for the first time you go, oh shit, I really taste that flavor.
yeah,
And that can be an awakening experience that leads you down the path of coffee. So I agree with you for sure on that point. We don't
nice.
need to beat each other up.
Wow, we don't even have to argue this episode, eh?
Yeah. One thing I find fascinating from this year, so there's a handful of
So what?
producers. I did it again. There's a
Yeah,
handful of
man.
producers that are kind of leading the charge with the processing, right? There's maybe 10 to 20 different producers that are kind of in there, and this year I noticed a few of them that historically have only said it's, let's say, thermal shock, or have said it's non-infusions, have all of a sudden come out and said, hey, you know what, this is co-fermented, hey, this is infused, hey, I added this thing into that thing, and that's how I made this flavor. And we've had a couple unveiling, I don't know how to say that, but a couple people that sort of lifted the hood and showed us what's inside. And I think that's really beneficial. I think the more we can talk about what's happening, the better it will be for the industry. Like you mentioned, classic washed coffees. Somebody recently gave me, it looks like a washed coffee, and it's technically a washed coffee, but he described it to me as a three-phase fermentation, that in the first one had blackberries and cherries and Brussels sprouts, and then in the second one had blueberries and orange, and then in the third one they washed it, and then it got added all these other things in there too. Whatever it is, I'm making a mockery of it, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it just was this like super lengthy process with all these different fruits added, and then he finishes with a big smile, and then he's like, and then it's traditionally washed.
Right.
And I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be a cool
That's
craft.
not traditional at all.
It's nowhere near traditional, but uh, I think it's another one of those things. It leads to us having conversations, which will lead to us defining elements in the industry that previously didn't have contextual language behind, that gave true context. It will be its own category, I think.
Yeah. And knowledge is power, and more people knowing how things are processed, or flavors are showing up in the cup. The more we can identify how it's showing up in the cup is better for all of us. And it doesn't, like, yes, it matters how it got there. And if we can figure out that more through roasting, through processing, through how the coffee's grown, through how it's brewed, that's a good thing for our industry. So I think people shouldn't be shamed or brought down if like they're co-fermenting. That's sweet. There's lots of room in our industry to have those type of coffees. No problem.
Yeah,
Let's
just if
let's
if
keep
you're
going,
doing it,
baby.
if you're listening to it and you're doing this as a producer, or if you're a roaster that's buying these things, or a consumer that's buying from a roaster, ask the questions of how is it done, and make sure make sure it's done in a way that's healthy is the one thing that I can like really push and advocate for. Is, a lot of flavor additives are not, they're not healthy. They're not consumable in the way of, like, they shouldn't go into a fermentation with food stuff. There's potentially, there's a side that's very scary of co-fermenting and infusions and all that sort of stuff, because after that food product has to go through a roasting process. And a lot of flavor agents, if they're just adding flavor agents, are made with synthetic ingredients. And synthetic ingredients, when they go to 200 degrees Celsius in a roaster, are going to turn into straight carcinogens, and that's going to get consumed by people, and it's just going to be a bad look on coffee. So the one thing I would advocate is, if you're buying these coffees, or you think this coffee that you're buying is within a category that it doesn't taste real, ask your next person in sort of the community, whether that's the roaster or producer, whoever it might be, and just try to get transparency on how all of that is happening, because we don't want to have health risks or scares that would be a detriment to the entire industry, not just that small segment.
Yeah, or an allergic reaction. I don't know if that's even possible, but someone's deathly ill to whatever mandarin oranges,
Right.
and it's been, I don't know, sprayed or co-fermented, and somehow that's able to, the
Make it
person
all.
consuming it has a reaction, and,
Right.
something deadly happens, and, it seems far-fetched, but who knows? And yeah, just us understanding all that would be good for the industry and how that impacts the end consumer, because we don't want to have something in 5 years that, something bad happens to the industry as a whole. And
Right. No shellfish co-fermented coffees. Okay.
that was the next breakthrough innovation.
Yeah. Not in my
No,
bag. Not in my
no,
bag.
no.
All right. What's number 5, Dave?
Number five, but number one in our hearts, right? That's right. Uh, for us, this is obviously a more personal one. Us stopping and smelling the roses. No, stopping and smelling the flowers, big guy.
Nice one.
2024, you and me coached four competitors at the World Barista Championship. Yeah, it was, long couple of months, exciting. Uh, we created a documentary, so that was
You
very
don't seem
unique
overly
pros.
excited. You don't seem overly excited, dude. You had more
I'm,
enthusiasm going into the alternative milk segment.
I was trying to build it. I'm trying to build it here, man.
Okay.
Trying to get the long, slow build, but
I see. I see.
obviously that's not coming across. So no, we coached four people. Uh, we got two of the guys to the semifinals. We got Mikhail to the finals, and ultimately won it. We were able to like capture all those moments on video, and then about a month and a half ago, we were able to release the flower story. So for us, that was we've almost gotten 30,000 views. So if you haven't watched it, please go watch it. Lots of people have commented and subscribed and walked up to us at trade shows and said how emotional or appreciate showing, a different side of competition. That's my
I,
thoughts, man.
I watched it with my grandparents, and my grandfather's 90, and my nana's 88, and I've told them all about competition. Just for record, this is my mom's parents, so not Dave's grandparents. So we are brothers, for people that aren't aware of that. But when I reference this set of grandparents, this is my mother's father. So not Dave's grandfather. If anybody's thinking this is weird that they're brothers in the way that I'm framing this. Anyway, I'm getting in the weeds. I
Wow, you're
watched it.
really
I watched it with my grandparents, and they know all about our journey through the years, and my participation, your participation, Rosso's participation in the competitions, and and they kind of went, "Oh wow." Like now we really get it, seeing the behind the scenes element and what goes into making the presentation, what goes into the champion, the lead up, all that sort of stuff. So if you're not familiar with that perspective of the industry, we highly recommend watch the documentary. It's also, I mean, for you and I, it's a pretty exciting thing to have a documentary out there, and we appreciate all the support and love that we have gotten through it.
Yeah, it's a neat piece of you know, history that we can share with people that have also known us a long time, like you're
Yeah,
saying, grandparents or friends and family that just don't understand
they don't quite get it. Yeah,
us. Yeah, and we can show them that, and it gives them a little bit more of an understanding.
right.
And I think what's really exciting is in 2025, we're going to do an extended version, a director's cut. So Dom, who did all the cuts on the videos and things like that, is going to do uh, a much longer version and tell parts of the story that we didn't do in the kind of 30-minute condensed version. And this one will be significantly longer. We'll do some commentary of us doing the present on the presentations. We got some other footage that'll kind of make its way in there, and we'll talk about more about the coffee and different aspects that we didn't quite focus on the first version. So we're excited. Hopefully, we release that just before WBC next year,
2025.
2025. Get everyone hyped up and
And then we should also have some other footage coming out of lead ups to other championships as 2025 progresses. So stay tuned. If you like seeing the behind the scenes of coffee competitions or just anything to do with coffee competitions and industry as a whole, come on down to Buy the Drip and check out what's happening. We have, I think I'm going to pump our tires for a second, Dave.
oh wow.
We did 20 weeks consecutive of an email newsletter. So if you don't get our email newsletter right now, there are, I believe, just shy of 500 people on that list. Highly recommend subscribing to that. We do a weekly topic, kind of chef's choice. We kind of pull different topics out. We're gonna start to lean into industry friends and social media and try to get some more conversation happening, and we'll start to feed some conversations through the platform. So check that out. We'll put it down in the show notes. We did, I guess, 25 podcasts, I believe, this year. The two of us collectively, we're right around 25 podcasts on the Buy the Drip platform this year. Started a YouTube channel. We have 6,000 plus subscribers on YouTube, which still blows my mind. So you can check out our podcast. You can check out lots of things. I think in terms of media and content, Dave, you've done a pretty good job this year. We got some room for improvement and some opportunities for 2025, but proud of you, buddy.
You too, big guy. I think our biggest opportunity for 2025 is just more throughput. We uh we go in ebbs and flows. But we're reflecting on 2024. So you did an amazing job in 2024, big guy. Your writing, top notch.
Unbelievable. My
Your podcast
grandfather,
skills.
my grandfather is so proud of you now that he knows what you do.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
No, 2024, reflecting on it, especially, through By the Drip has been a nice evolution. And I think we're kind of finding our stride. It's a bit of a, unique setup for us. And I think over the next 6 months here, we'll have some fun content coming out. We've got more things in the pipeline. It always takes a little bit longer than you think. So we're excited for that. And hopefully we can take the podcast more on the road, get some conversations and more in person with people. We're working on that. We'll be traveling to hopefully all the trade shows this year so we can set some fun stuff up.
We're
And
really passionate about trade shows. Big
yeah, I love
big
trade
convention
show.
exhibition halls. Oh man, do I love the
Yeah,
architecture and
there's
design.
nothing like it. The energy, the vibe.
Oh yeah, especially when you're in a world class city that you don't get to see. Yeah, lots of exciting stuff coming up in 2025, and I think 2024 is a year to celebrate. Lots of great things that happened all around. This is focused mostly on our industry and by the drip, but lots of exciting things happening out there too. So thanks everybody for following along, for supporting the two of us, Dave and I, and our coffee shenanigans as we continue to figure out a life in coffee that we never expected could be through coffee. The
And
journeys
we
and
appreciate it if you made it to the very end here.
yeah, thank you so much. As they say
Yeah.
here in Thailand, Kapun Ka.
Signing off
Okay, ciao.
2024.